Namaskaram. Om Sat Gurubhyo Namaha. At the outset, I would first like to offer my pranams to my Paramaguru, Dr. Padma Subramaniam, who has brought to fore in the 20th century the importance of the Nati Shastra as a pan-Asian text, offering a common cultural code to the entire Jambudvipa. She has brought back into practice the 108 Ritta Karanas mentioned in the Nati Shastra, thereby reviving the Marga tradition, which with a gap of almost 500 years of it being out of practice. I offer my pranams to my guru and mother, Dr. Jayashree Rajagopalan, who has initiated me into this beautiful journey of dance, and through whose constant guidance and training, I have been able to whet my thirst for the dance form of Bharatanatyam and get a glimpse into the world of the Nati Shastra. I'm Aishwarya Harish, a Bharatanatyam dancer who's had training in the Marga system of dance of the Nati Shastra for about 2.5 decades now. I'm very thankful to Dr. Sampadananda Mishra ji and the Safik organization for giving me this platform to present before you whatever I have learned from my gurus. I feel extremely honored and humbled to be talking to such an august audience. Bharat, our motherland, has always held Vidya at a very high place of importance. Acquiring it, enhancing it, imparting it was the primary goal of every Indian. And it is probably this that has kept up our high standards of moral, philosophic, scientific values. Ya Vidya sa vimuchyate. It is knowledge alone that gives liberation. The antiquity of our cultural heritage has been based on this maxim. Vidya was always a holistic blend of Shastra and color, or science and art. Every human activity thus became a color, an art, be it dance, music, architecture, iconography, textile making, perfumery, Ayurveda, for even the science of medicine was thought of to be the art of healing. Over time, when these art forms were practiced and perfected, they would be codified to form a Shastra. The Shastra thus became a systematic analysis of the methodology, becoming a sort of a textbook for these art forms. And that is how we have the Gandharva Shastra, the Shilpa Shastra, the Natya Shastra. It is the systematic approach. What does a Shastra mean? A Shastra basically means simplifying something, simplifying the subject matter in such a detailed, analytical way that it becomes easy for anybody to understand. And that is how our art forms were able to reach out to a larger mass. And we see that even today, many of our traditional Indian arts are still very much in practice. Coming to the Natya Shastra, let us see why it had to originate in the first place. So very briefly, the Natya Shastra originated because Indra requested Lord Brahma to give him some tool whereby he could bring he could bring mankind back on the right path of conduct. This is believed to be at the end of the Satyuga, beginning of Treta Yuga. And therefore, Brahma is said to have culled from the 4 Vedas material and brought it into a 5th Veda called the Natya Veda. Now, since the purpose of the Natya Veda was to reach to the Loka, the masses, he gave the responsibility to sage Bharata to bring Natya Veda into a Shastric form, to make it into the Natya Shastra. So this is how we find Bharata analyzing the Natya Veda in a very systematic, simplified manner. And thus, Bharata is said to have created an audio-visual tool which was meant for all castes, the young and the old, the poet and the actors, the layman and the learned. Bharata says, there is nothing beyond the borders of Natya. Nata jnanam nata shilpam, nasa vidya nasa kala, nasau yogo tat karmam, natasyem yanna drishyate. The Natya Shastra, the science of dramaturgy, deals with all the relevant aspects of theatre, dance, and music. It is a voluminous treatise in Sanskrit covering 36 chapters presented in a prose and verse format. From its syntax and its placement of words, you can make out that it is so closely related to the Vedic work. It becomes the reference book for also the later Agamas, which use it to know if, for instance, a particular deity has to be represented in a particular pose or a stance, or even the sculptures on the temple walls. The shlokas in the Natya Shastra would help the Sthapati to create whatever he has imagined, to bring to fore what is in his realization. The rules of dance and drama that have been laid in the Natya Shastra. This is called the Marga tradition, and it forms the basis for almost all the deshis across the length and breadth of the country. And it is not just the Indian art forms, but we can trace world art forms with relation to the Natya Shastra. This is how we, just to take a few examples, we have many of the Western ballet movements which are very similar to the Akashacharis. We also have the Japanese dances which can be studied vis-a-vis the Natya Shastra. The discovery of the Karana sculptures codified in the temple, Prambanan temple in Java, Southeast Asia, only goes further to prove that this definitely was a text having a common cultural code for the entire Jambudvipa or Eurasia. And just a glimpse of the Natya Shastra would tell us that it has unquestionable relevance to even today's aesthetic sensibilities. While the Natya Shastra covers a very wide range, I have been repeatedly saying it is a voluminous text because it is. When it says Natya covers everything, it has all the Vidyas covered in Natya. It talks of not just dance, rules of drama, rules of music, but every other aspect related. So you would have it talking about making of instruments, how instruments should be played, what kind of stage should be built. It's talking about architecture, it's talking about building of stage properties, it's talking about making of jewelry, props, stage material, and even up to the food that a dancer should eat in order to be fit to dance. So obviously, I am not going to be able to cover the Natya Shastra in entirety, but what I'm going to be looking at is the dance aspect in specific. But of course, given the time frame, it would be just a cursory overview of the systematic analysis that Bharata has taken us through for any dancer to pick up this pedagogy and embellish her art. I am going to try and keep this as simple. It is a little technical, but I'm going to try and keep it as simple as possible so that my sincere aim is that there is, just as this curiosity, seed of curiosity was instilled in my mind, I would like to instill that seed of curiosity to know and I understand the Natya Shastra in the minds of every Rasika. Natya or theatre art is based on Abhinaya or the art of communication. Abhinaya is made up of Abhi, meaning towards, and Nayati is meaning carrying, literally meaning taking the concept towards the audience. So Abhinaya is a carrying forward of the concept. Abhinaya is thus made up of Bhava, which is expression, and Rasa, which is an experience of that expression. So we have to understand Abhinaya entails two concepts, Bhava and Rasa. Now, like I said, Bharata keeps systematizing the knowledge, so it keeps breaking it. He keeps breaking it down into parts. So he has now given us Abhinaya broken down into 4 parts. The first one being Angika Abhinaya, which is communication through the entire body and the limbs of the body. Vachika Abhinaya, which is using of the speech to communicate. Aharya Abhinaya, which is using the external elements like costume, stage props, jewelry, makeup. And Satvika Abhinaya, which is communication of the intense psychological moods of the character or the artist. Under Angika Abhinaya, Bharata analyzes the body into angas and upangas. Angas being the major limbs and upangas being the minor limbs. We have him mention 6 angas, namely the head, Shiraha, Hasta or the hand, Uraha or the chest, Parshva or the sides, Kati or the hips, and Padaha or the feet. Now, how each of these could be used for communication, I would just take, for example, the movement of the head. So Bharata gives us the shloka so that it becomes very easy to learn and perform. We have Shirobheda, Akapitam, Kampitam cha, Dhutam, Vidhutameva cha, Parivahito, Udvahitakam, Avadhutam, Tatha Anchitam, Nihanchitam, Paravrittam, Ukshiptam, Chapyadohatam, Lolitam Chaiva Vinyayam, Trayodasha Vidham Shiraha. So, in a very simple, succinct manner, he has given us 13 types of head movements. He calls all the angas and upangas, he refers to them as Vyayama. But at the same time, since it is under Angika Abhinaya, he gives us a list of their usages. And that is what we use to communicate. So, for example, when we're doing the Shirobheda, if we are taking the first one, Akampitam, and I'm going to be looking up and down, it means to say yes, or welcoming someone, or just surveying something up and down. The Parivahito movement, it is so peculiar to the Indian system, way of talking, saying yes. Or even to show beauty, we would show it this way, a slighter movement of the head. And when I say Lolitam, this is, from this we understand how cross-culturally it is relevant, the Natya Shastra. Without knowing the language, what Lolitam means, when I show this and just shake my head without moving any part of my body, I could convey swooning, fainting, illness, and it would be communicated very easily. So likewise, we also have, if I had to show, if I had to take it in the format of a story, so I would show probably Yashoda shouting at Krishna for saying, why did you steal butter? And Krishna doing that to say, no, I didn't do it. This is Nihanchitam. Then he says, I didn't do it. So all of this can be expressed just with the head movements. Taking just one another anga, for example, we have the hastas. I have taken the Hasta Bheda because again here he analyzes it so systematically. Hasta meaning the hands. And even someone who is not familiar with the Natya Shastra would say, yes, of course, dance and theatre, you would use the hands. But only a study of this in the theoretical way tells us that there are actually so many possibilities. And that it has been done so many centuries ago, we take it for granted today that, yes, this is how we would show this is how we would depict this. But it is that theory that allows us to practice it even after so many years. So when it comes to Hasta Bheda, he divides the hastas into 2 types, the Abhinaya Hasta and the Vritta Hasta. Abhinaya Hasta, meaning like the name, communicative gestures, and the Nritta Hastas are those that help embellishing pure dance on Nritta. Coming down to the Abhinaya Hastas first, and then we'll deal with the Nritta Hastas. The Abhinaya Hastas again have 2 classifications, Asamyukta and Samyukta. Asamyukta is only the single hand. Samyukta is where the hands come together. Now, under the Asamyukta Hastas, we have several of them, like Pataka, Tripataka, Ardhapataka, Kartari Mukhaha, Mayurakyo, Ardhachandra, Arala, Shukatunda, Mushti. It goes on this way. But how we use them for communication again is the interesting bit. For example, when I say Pataka, Pataka, with the word, it means flag, but I don't use it just to show flag. I would use the Pataka Hasta to say stop, come, go, sit down, receive something. Or the single hand gestures when used separately on both hands gives me scope to do so much more. I could show the wind, I could show the shutting of a door, opening, the cloud, covering something. So all this becomes possible. Likewise, we have again mentioning, across cultures, something that's understood very easily. We have the Mushti Hasta. Mushti, the minute I keep this, it is communicated already that it is something to show with pride, strength, power, force. So all of this is with the Mushti Hasta. We have Kataka Mukhaha, that is literally meaning of the parrot. This is what we show for parrot. We could use it to show the holding of a flower, a damsel walking. We have the Suchi Hasta again, which is meaning a needle, but only the form of that word is taken to point. It is used to point at things. It is used to show the rising of the Kundalini. It is used to show the world, playing of the drum. So this is all done with the Suchi Hasta. What is the Samyukta Hasta? When the single hand gesture is combined and both the hands are put to use to convey that concept, it becomes a Samyukta Hasta. So just as we took the Pataka Hasta, if I took two Pataka Hastas and joined them, I would get the Anjali Hasta, I would get the Kapota Hasta. Similarly, if I took a Shikhara Hasta on a single hand gesture, combined it, joined it with another Shikhara, I would get the Shankha. Two Tripatakas make the Chakra. Likewise, so on and so forth. We have several of the Samyukta Hastas. We have the Artha Chandras when joined. This is simple for even children to understand what is being shown. Matsya could be shown this way. So it becomes not just simple, but also interesting for any student at any stage of learning. Apart from the Samyukta and Asamyukta, we now come to the Nritta Hasta. The Nritta Hastas are the hand gestures in which the entire arm is involved. So you saw that the Abhinaya Hastas that I showed, single or double, mostly covered a very small space and they would mostly use only the region of the wrist. But the Nritta Hastas are more dynamic and they use the entire arm. They used to communicate as well as embellish Natya, embellish dance. So for example, we just saw the Suchi Hasta. This is an Abhinaya Hasta. It tells you directly, it tells you about pointing. But when it is used as a Nritya Hasta, we have the Suchasya Nritta Hasta that does this. Similarly, we have the Chaturashra Nritta Hasta, which is what is used as, in the beginning of a dance movement. It is the starting point of dance. We have the Rechita Nritta Hasta, Ardha Rechita, Nitamba. All of these are used specifically as Nritta elements of the Nritta Hastas, as to embellish pure dance. But as I said, we also have Nritta Hastas that are used to communicate, right? So here I would like to take up just a few, such as when I show Avidya Vakra. I'm going to take this because I'm going to use it as common as a common gesture when I explain the rest of the concepts. This is what is Avidya Vakra. And when brought from up to down, I could use this to show the many arms of divinity, or the Garuda Hasta, Garuda Paksha Hasta. It shows the vivacity of Garuda and his wings going up, high up, whereas the Samyukta Hasta only gave me the option to do this to show the bird, or do this to show a flock of birds. But here I can show the entire, magnanimous wings of Garuda. Then we have the so popular Nalini Padma Kosha. So all of these are the Nritta Hastas that also have the communicative aspect to them. So along with the Angas, Bharata gives a list of the Upangas as well, which act like links, helping the major limbs move. So for example, if I have my head, obviously when I'm moving my head, I have my neck also moving, but he gives a specific set of vyayama and usages for the movement of the neck. He analyzes the neck, the arm, the belly, thigh, knee, shank, all of these as upangas, and we have a separate set of movements for them. And also the mukhaja upangas, the upangas of the face, are dealt with in a separate group, where just look at the detailing that he has gone to. It is, we have the movements for the eyebrow, the eyelid, the eye, the cheek, the chin, the nose. And this is how detailed his pedagogic system is. So don't you see, he mentions all of these only as vyayama. It is used for communication. And a dancer was meant to go through this entire exercise as her initial training. What a beautiful gym that we had so many centuries ago. I think when we exercised our bodies in this way, we wouldn't need any other form of exercise. And it is taking forward this concept, which is already mentioned in the Marga. My mother, through her association in the Marga tradition for so many, more than almost 5 decades, and her association with her guru, has brought her to conceive a body fitness program called Fitness Through Shastra. This kind of pedagogy enables very rigorous body training in a very scientific way, so that the dancer can ultimately actually train the body so much in order to forget it when you begin your actual dancing. A set of 32 movements of the legs, known as charis, are also given. Now these, chari comes from the root word char, which means to move. And they have been classified as bhumicharis and akashacharis. Bhumicharis are where both feet are constantly on the floor, and akashachari is where one foot is constantly lifted. There are 16 in each. I'm just going to have to get up and demonstrate here, because it is best to understand the charis as I perform it. So how do, there are of course 32, and I'm not going to go through all 32 of them, but just to show that how a chari can help in communication. So supposing I took the concept of Putana, we all know the Rakshasi who came to feed Krishna. So I would show Putana, she's hiding and seeing from behind the tree, and she says, okay, there is Krishna. Now she has to transform herself into a beautiful damsel, and she walks with the Bhadrachari, and this is how we can show that she has now transformed from the violent Rakshasi Rupa to a beautiful damsel form. Similarly, if I had to show the prancing of a deer, I would use the Mrugaplutachari, which goes as, so this is to show the jumping of the deer. Even if I had to show combat, I would use the Adhyartikachari, which it is done this way. And so I would do this to show combat. And the Akashachari of Brahmara to make the combat more vigorous. So in this way, the charis not only help us embellish dance, but they also help us communicate a lot of movements. Of course, the charis are usually done without any hastas. While Gati is so important in the Natya Shastra, Bharata gives equal importance to Sthiti, which is stability. And it is for this reason that he has prescribed 9 stances known as sthanas, again divided as 3 sthanas and purusha sthanas. While prescribing the Sthiti Gati concept, he also gives the concept of symmetry and proportion being the hallmarks of aesthetic appeal in dance as well as drama. A combination of the sthana, chari, and the nritta hasta is what forms the basic unit of dance called as karana. So you would see now, I have spoken of the anga, upanga, sthana, chari. It is, a dancer has to go through all this training and only then can reach the basic unit of dance, which is the karana, which is a combination of all of these, that is the nritta hasta, sthana, and chari. It comes from the root word krin, which means to do. There are 108 Ritta Karanas prescribed in the Natya Shastra. Karanas can lend themselves to just pure dance on Ritta, as well as Vakyartha Abhinaya, or communication of concepts through the entire body. So we have here a Karana meaning Hastapada Samayogaha Rittasya Karanam Bhave. So according to Abhinava Gupta, who is one of the best commentators of the Natya Shastra, he says Bharata meant by Hasta, he meant the entire upper body, and by Pada, he meant the entire lower body. And so we now realize that the Karana is a movement literally involving the entire body from head to toe. To just give an example of the Vakyartha Abhinaya concept, I will be taking up just 2 Karanas here. We have the first Karana, which is the Tala Pushpa Puta Karana. It is performed thus. Tam, tat, tak, hin, tad, hin, tat, tam, tam, tat, tak, hin, tad, hin, tat, tam. So very beautifully, this shows us how you can use it to collect flowers and offer it for worship. Similarly, we have the Anchitam Karana, which is used to show surprise. So when we do this, 1, so this is how the Anchitam Karana shows the element of surprise. You can see how I'm using the hand, the body, as well as changing the posture, which is giving me a sense of stability, giving my movement a sense of stability. One of the important Karanas here that I would like to take for analysis is the Bhujanga Trasita Karana. Tam, tat, tak, dhin, tat, dhin, tat, tam, tat, tam, tat, tak, dhin, tat, dhin, tat, tam. You can see that this becomes the genesis for the Nataraja Vritta Murti, which is but just a frozen moment of the entire movement. And this is how most of the sculptures on temple walls in general, and particularly the 5 temples in southern India that formed the subject matter of my Paramaguru's research, all the Karana figures only form the moment of the movement. And so the Karana does not become a pose by just seeing what is on the temple wall, but there is a animation to that movement, and only the moment is represented on the wall. How the Karanas are used in a pure dance piece, I would just like to demonstrate that too. Dhadam, kutak di kutak dari kita tak to kita tak di kita tak to kita tak di kita tak to kita tam tatakadhin di tatakadhin tam tatakadhin tat tam tam tatakadhin di tatakadhin tam tatakadhin tat tam to kita tak tam tatakadhin tat tam to kita tak tam tatakadhin tat tam to kita tak di kita to kita tak di kita So in this way, the Karanas are also put together to form an entire choreography that can be used as a pure dance piece. The Karanas could also be used as either the Uddhata Prayoga or the Sukumara Prayoga. What do we mean by Uddhata? Uddhata is the forcefully graceful And Sukumara is the gracefully soft. So you have the forcefully loud movements, such as we have the Premkholitam Karana, which goes as takka thin, tak thin, takka tam, takka thin, tak thin, tam. And you can see there is so much vigor in this. And for the Sukumara, I would just take a small example of, I'll take the Kati Samam Karana here. 1, 2, tat, thin, tat, tam, kita tam, tat, thin, tat, tam. I will just repeat the 2 for you to get an idea of what I mean by gracefully forceful and the gracefully soft, because the grace element cannot be taken out. It has to be there. So you have Premkholitam, which is an Uddhata Prayoga, and you have the Kati Samam, which is an Sukumara Prayoga. And you also have several of them that combine these two aspects of Uddhata and Sukumara. This is but just an analysis of the Angika aspect of Bharata's Abhinaya. We will now move on to the Vachika aspect. Vachika Abhinaya, as the word says, is communication through the speech. So, for example, if in action I would say, it would be communicated to an extent. But when I embellish it with Krishna ni begane baro, immediately there is a greater connect to the communication aspect, to whatever I am showing. Of course, in Nritta, in dance, we do have Vachika as a support to the Angika, or vice versa. But when it comes to Natya, Vachika becomes a very predominant mode, and thereby Bharata deals with other relevant aspects here, like pronunciation, intonation, meter, breath control. All of these are dealt with under Vachika Abhinaya. The next one is Sattvika Abhinaya. Again, Sattvika, like I said, it is a communication through the intense mental involvement. And here it is a process. So where the dancer is completely involved into the character, she is completely aware of herself, yet into that character, gone into that character. So if with Angika I would show this, I would actually be shedding tears in Sattvika Abhinaya. Horripilation I could show like this as Angika Abhinaya, but I would be actually feeling the horripilation in such a way that the audience is able to feel what I am feeling along with me. So that is Sattvika Abhinaya. It is definitely, like I said, a process, and one has to slowly get into it. And finally, we come to Aharya Abhinaya. Though I take it in the end, I would say Aharya Abhinaya has the unique quality of being the strongest. Though we've spoken in such detail about Angika Abhinaya, Aharya has its unique place because it comes into play even before any of the other Abhinayas have made their point. Let me give you an example. So if I have a character walking into stage with a crown and 10 heads attached, it doesn't take me too long to know who that character is and how Ravana is going to now then, therefore, what is the mood that's going to be set for the song or the dance or the drama. If I see a character in orange robes, immediately we are all set to understand what kind of movement or expression is going to come from that character. And likewise, it's not just in the costume, but also the setting. So if I have a young damsel, young dancer who is on the stage, youthful dancer, and the stage setting is such that there is, it is in a Vatika or a Vana, and you have another character who is with having a crown with a peacock feather, it doesn't take us very long to realize that it's probably going to turn into a ras or a dance with Krishna and his gopi. So this is the power of Aharya Abhinaya. And we have, in today's times, I think Indian cinema
is one of the best repositories of Aharya Abhinaya. A presentation of drama could have either one of these abhinayas as being predominant, but when there is a combination, a judicious mix of all of these, it is termed as Samanya Abhinaya. Abhinaya is also classified. There are two aspects that support Abhinaya, called dharmis. We have the Natya Dharmi and the Loka Dharmi. I know it may get a little specific, but this is the beauty of scientific analysis, because you have to be as specific and detailed, but still when you see it as a larger picture, it is so easy to understand. When you see the entire map, it is so easy to understand. So the dharmis are basically, like I said, Natya Dharmi and Loka Dharmi. Natya Dharmi is giving you the conventions of the stage, and Loka Dharmi is giving you what is popular in the Loka, or the regional popular movement. So for example, if I would show this, the mountain, I'm showing the mountain with my hand. I possibly could not, I would say Shiva sitting on the mountain, and nobody is expecting me to get Kailasha Parvat on the stage. So this is Natya Dharmi. It is giving me, I'm saying it's a huge mountain, but the mountain is just almost my height. And that's perfectly understood. People absolutely understand. But if I would want to show, like I take the previous example, when I am showing tears, if I show this is Natya Dharmi. I am just communicating that I'm crying. But if I would actually end up crying, shedding those tears, that would be Loka Dharmi. And so automatically a lot of Satvik Abhinaya falls under Loka Dharmi. Bharata says that Natya should have a very judicious balance of both Natya Dharmi and Loka Dharmi. Natya was, again, let's go back to the very purpose of why Natya came into existence. It was, yes, a means of entertainment, had to be there for people to understand, but it was not just to entertain, it was also to enlighten. Bharata Muni in his Natya Shastra says, while the senses of the eyes, the ears, nose, and touch are easily understood in relation to enjoying Nritya or Natya, the sense of taste is explained as relishing of the aesthetic experience. This is what Bharata calls rasa. Rasa, we use it often. The ras, it is the juice, the extract of a particular thing. Just as we would prepare a dish, we would put in several ingredients, each having its own specific taste, but the final dish has a unique taste, and it is that rasa that we enjoy. And that is the example that Bharata gives for Natya as well. Several elements that he has analyzed so painstakingly, he says they should but be an amalgam put together in such a way that the entire production becomes absolutely enjoyable. So here he says that no theatrical presentation is complete without rasa. Basically, without rasa, nothing is enjoyed. Bharata gives us the Rasa Sutra saying, Tatra vibhava anubhava vyabhichari bhava samyogat rasa nishpattihi. The Natya Shastra thus becomes the earliest text, and Bharata the first propounder of the rasa theory, so unique and primary to the study of aesthetics and Indian philosophy. Bhava, or feeling, was the basis for expression. Bhava comes from the root word bhu, which means coming into existence. So bhava is then the mood, and again he classifies bhava into vibhava, anubhava, and vyabhichari bhava. What is vibhava? Vibhava becomes the cause. Anubhava, the experience, and vyabhichari bhavas, the many fleeting emotions. These bhavas expressed through the relevant abhinayas lead to rasanubhava. That is, when the mood is expressed in its proper manner, the onlooker is able to relish it and consume that mood. And that experience is rasanubhava, or aesthetic relish, which is the ultimate aim of all Natya, or rather all art, I could say, at this juncture. Human beings experience almost 49 psychological states of the mind, but Bharata says that only 8 are sthai, or They are dominant states. They last for a while. And these are the 8 sthayi bhavas, having their relevant 8 rasas. The rest of the 33 are but fleeting emotions. They are therefore called Vyabhichari bhavas. So if I had to take just a very short example, let us take the setting of a lover who has lost her beloved in war. So this dominant bhava here is of Shokha. And for the audience who's watching, the rasa is Karuna. Obviously, you are very, your heart goes out to that young girl who has lost her beloved in war. But between the sthai of Shokha and the rasa of Karuna, there are several other expressions and experiences that she would be feeling of anger, anxiety, loss, of fainting, of sickness. And all of these only go to strengthen the sthai of Shokha. I would just like to make a small presentation here. It is an Ashtapadi, Sa Virahe Tavadhina. This is more to demonstrate the Vyabhichari bhavas. The storyline is a very simple storyline, and it is here that brings out the beauty of Jayadeva's works, where he brings the Sakhi as a guru who is bringing a connect between the Jivatma and Paramatma, Jivatma being Radha, the Gopi, and Krishna, Madhava. So Sakhi comes telling Madhava, "Oh Madhava, my friend is in Viraha. She's in pain, being separated from you, and you are really putting her through so much turmoil. She doesn't want to smell the sweet smell of Chandanam. She thinks the moonlight is pricking her. She thinks the breeze that's coming from the mountains is poisonous because of the snakes, areas that it passes by that has snakes. She thinks, she meditates, and she starts talking to herself. She is smiling, she's laughing, she's crying. You have almost made her mad. Please come to her, and so that she can be feeling much better." So this is more only for the Abhinaya aspect of it. So the Sakhi comes running. She's coming to search for Madhava. Madhava, Madhava, Virahe Tavadhina Madhava, Virahe Tavadhina Madhava, Virahe Tavadhina Madhava, Manasija Vishikha Bhadipa, Madhava, Manasija Vishikha Bhadipa, Bhavanaya Tvina Madhava, Bhavanaya Tvina Madhava, Sa Virahe Tavadhina Nindati Chandana Hindu Kiranam, Nindati Chandana Hindu Kiranam, Anupindati Khedam Adhiram, Vyala Nilaya Milanetara Dharanamiva, Kalayati Malaya Sabiram, Madhava, Sa Virahe Tavadhina Dhyanayena Purana Parikalpya Bhavantam Adiram Durapam Vilapati Hasati Vishidati Rodati Chanchati Munchati Papam Madhava Savirahe Tavadhina Madhava Madhava. So this was just a short presentation to show how the sadness of the Sakhi, of the Jivatma, of Radha, is actually communicated through the Sakhi, and finally it all ends well when Madhava says, "I'm coming along." So she goes through, she's explaining, the Sakhi is explaining through the several emotions that Radha is going through in the pangs of separation. So I would just like to bring here very quickly the point that according to Bharata, Natya, when done properly, gives values of fame, longevity, wellness, and enhancement of the mind and intellect. Natya must be not just imitation or anukarana, but glorified and beautified imitation or anukirtana. As it is an ancient belief system that states that which is permanent is divine, that is the only truth, and it is ever beautiful. So life is a constant quest to see that permanent beauty in everything that we do in order to find that connect with our Creator. Thus, we can say confidently that all art in India was, has, and will always be a sacred art form and therefore permanent in its cultural milieu. Sarve Vaiskina Sarve Santu Niramaya Sarve Bhadrani Pashyantu Ma Kaschid Dukhamapnuya. This urge for a community well-being is what has kept Indian cultural tradition so strong and its art so respected. The thirst for art becomes a valid goal because art is the means to experience Paramananda or the ultimate bliss. Dhanyavada.